Well, welcome once again. This is the Doctor of Digital podcast with your host, the Doctor of Digital. The purpose of the show is to introduce you to trends in technology, marketing your message, and to meet people you need to know. Did you know that in recent years there has been a growing interest in the scientific study of consciousness, and researchers have used various methods such as brain imaging and behavioral experiments to investigate the neural correlates of consciousness and the mechanisms understanding states of awareness? In this episode, we'll discuss the changes and hot topics about higher consciousness and understand how to unlock one's inner leader and how this can influence others. By the end of this episode, you'll be better equipped to know what to do, and I'm going to encourage you to contact my guest, Dr. Baydar. Dr. Teri Baydar is a leadership coach and CEO whisperer. She has an MBA from Hult International Business School, and she also got a book, Flip Your Switch, which we can also talk a little bit more about as well. And with that, we'd like to welcome Teri to the program. Thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you today.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm very excited.
Well, that sounds outstanding. Now, I'll give you a basic introduction, but we'd sure like to know a little bit more about you. So if you could tell us something about your background or something about, well, the fact that let's know a little bit more about who you are.
Yeah. So I've spent 35 years trying to figure out consciousness, basically. Actually, probably a little bit more because I was, even as a child, trying to figure out different aspects of how we think, what we think, how it affects us, what we feel, and how we perceive things.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the big turning point, there was a couple of turning points. One was I worked with for 7 years what we call an unacknowledged special access project for the French government when I was living in Paris. And, they were really big into understanding the group mind because they were interested in social engineering for the population, which, good or bad, whatever. It's something that we do. In marketing that we do this,
Yes,
right?
sure.
And how to plug into how the individual unconscious or subliminal mind works, and also figuring out how the group mind works and how the social constructs regulate us and how we participate in the social in shaping the social constructs, which when I talk about social constructs, it's a little bit like one of the buzzwords is zeitgeist. One of the metaphysical words is egregore, but I prefer social constructs. It's just a whole lot easier to understand.
Sure. Now, this has been a while, so I'm just curious what you could say. What are some of the changes that you have seen over the years in the field?
We are moving into an era where consciousnness will affect everything. The awareness of consciousness is our next step as a species. So think about how technology has moved forward so fast. Now, we haven't stopped to understand enough our technology of mind and heart and energy of body and so much of how we function. So we're ending up with a lot of unpleasant, unintended consequences, be it in business or society.
Sure.
So we're messing up a lot in some, on some very big threads of life. And it's a basic misunderstanding of how we function. So, and how we function in relationship to natural laws, which is like how we end up trashing the planet. Like, well, we didn't intend to do that. We were trying to do something that we thought was okay, good, creating value or creating profit in business. And that's all fine. So we need to look at a larger picture, which means we need to shift our consciousness to a higher level where we can understand more, have a larger state of comprehension. We need to grow our minds.
Okay. Are there's things that you would say are more current, so hot topics? I mean, people are talking about, speaking of technology, naturally, with artificial intelligence and machine learning and things like that. Or is this part of what you would say are the hot topics, and it comes down to the field of consciousness?
There are some, yes. I mean, we look at Elon Musk and stuff like that. No, is trying to create Neuralink and these things. But what we have to understand is we have two basic forms of consciousness. Now, there are lots of ways to cut this up and aggregate it all out. But that's actually what I'm trying to do, is synthesize it so that we can have a better, more simple understanding so that everybody can get a basic understanding of how this works, and they can do it for themselves, for their business, for their leadership, for everything that they're doing. And you need to understand that most of what's happening, for example, in AI, there is no intelligence in AI for the most part of what's being put out there. It is very high powered left brain function done by a machine. This means left brain function is where you capture, contain, and control information. You put it into an Excel sheet or a Gantt chart or some form of tool. It's very binary. It's a binary decision tree at all times. It's a right, left, right, left, right, left in the decision process. Whereas the human mind has a greater capacity to think in multi-dimensional terms, and that's the right mind. A lot of time, like for my book and for leaders that I work with as a coach, I repeat a lot: get out of your left brain into your right mind, because from your right mind you get a bigger picture of what's happening. You can be a real leader. You can understand the human consequences. You can understand and see farther. You have more vision. You want to be able to do that so that whatever you're doing with people or products can go farther and not have unintended consequences. So I'm a little bit rambling here, I know, but I'm got 35 years of stuff I'm trying to give you in 30, not even 35 minutes.
Well, it's good because that's really what we're trying to get to. I mean, there's a question I'd be curious about as well too, because this is one of those things in AI and machine learning. Are they ever going to develop, or have they developed consciousness themselves?
I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know. Right now, we have to look at what is consciousness, because consciousness, as we know it, think of it as awareness. Replace the word consciousness with awareness. So, to some degree, AI or software has an awareness. It can be aware of what's happening because it's told to go do something in the cybersphere. But it's not an awareness that, as far as I can tell today, is actually linked to life force in the way that we think of it as organic beings. Now, when we start to cross over and to merge organic with what we have now, who knows?
Would you say that higher levels of animals have consciousness? For example, it would be rare for a dog to look into a mirror and want to fix its fur, which would indicate consciousness. However, when humans look into a mirror, we're concerned about our appearance. We recognize ourselves.
Recognizing ourselves isn't necessarily consciousness. So that's not how I would qualify it. I qualify consciousness as a form of perception. So awareness and perception. So for example, what I talk about in my book is the two basic forms of consciousness. So just so you know, animals have consciousness, period. Probably trees, probably plants as well. Consciousness is a field. And within the field, we have two basic kinds of consciousness. One is war consciousness, and that is where we seek to come with that, coming from that left brain perspective. We try to capture, contain, and control something, someone out there or in here. Okay, that is one way of doing it. Then we have the love consciousness. Love consciousness is where we consider that actually we're all connected. I'm just part of the system, so are you. There's an interdependence of all things within the system. We can limit the system to planet Earth or go farther than that if you please. But the point being that we're all interconnected. So from a more right-minded, softer, more gentle, perceiving place, we're noticing all of the interconnections. It's more constellation fashion. It's not this linear binary thinking or single dimensional thinking. It's this multidimensional thinking where we integrate feelings also, and we allow the feelings to inform thought. And that, I call that love consciousness. Now, you can feel yourself as a human being toggling back and forth in a range from this, in this war and love. When you're frustrated and mad and want to hit something, obviously you're in war consciousness because it's you and something out there, you know? Now, when you're maybe looking at your child, you feel a connection. It's sort of like you're together. You know, you feel empathy and connection. You're part of the same thing. And so what I'm getting at is that most of what we've done in society and business is coming from war consciousness, and that we need to shift into a higher state of being, which is the love consciousness, in order to have better outcomes. That when we're thinking more holistically, we get better outcomes in business, in society, in relationships. So my book, Flip Your Switch, A User's Guide to a Whole New Mind, is something I've been putting together for a long time. It took me 10 years to write it and boil it down to something that is incredibly user-friendly for the layman. And because I can only coach so many people, and everybody on the planet needs to learn this. We need this.
And you've mentioned a couple of times, because I did want to explore this thought a little bit, that you work with business owners or CEOs, decision makers. So I'm really curious now, how does the person take this and these ideas and apply it to leadership and business? And particularly you work with CEOs as well.
Yeah. So my work with leaders was very intentional to create a ripple effect in business, because business is how we deal in so many ways. Like, this is what we do, right? We create products, businesses, services. That's how we interact a lot as humans. If you're being a really good leader and you're coming from a mindset that is love conscious, you're going to be more effective. You're going to have more vision. You're going to have better relationships and partnerships everywhere you go. You're going to understand your client better because you're willing to stretch your mind enough to do so. And you're willing to connect. And so what happens is, if you want to make an impact in the world somehow, coming from love consciousness is way more effective at getting there. a lot of times too, it will bring you out of the economic structure that we've created that's very pyramidal and extractional. And you can lean out of what some authors call plantation economics into partnership economics that is more reflective of how we come together to create outcomes that are better, larger, and more impactful on all levels. And, when I talk like that, sometimes people get scared thinking that they're not going to make money.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
that's not true. It's actually the opposite, because if you're creating value,
Yeah.
you're going to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to just extract money out of clients, you're going to kind of saw off the branch you're sitting on eventually. So it's the value creation first that you have to focus on from a love conscious point of view. What are you doing that makes a difference? How are you serving people? How do you fit into the bigger picture of where our new economies are going to go? And I really enjoy my job, because this is when it really gets into what I call, or actually I have been called, cosmic consigliere. It's like understanding where we're going, really from the very, very big picture, and how business models are shifting, whole industries are screaming to be born. We have a massive shift coming. We are at the cusp of a massive shift in how we deal with one another and how we make things, how we manufacture things, how we sell things, how we distribute things, how we serve and service one another is going to change. And it'll probably come really fast. It'll look like, the internet boom.
When you work with business owners, I'm curious, maybe you could talk a little bit about the process. Like, what do you offer? What do you say? And what's the process like if a CEO or a business leader wanted to speak with you so that they get some idea and some sense of what you do?
Well, it's a mind shift. It's a mind shift. It's a journey. Typically, in my private practice, it's about an 18-month journey. It takes about 2 hours a month, 1 hour every 15 days. And we use real life and the book and the constructs to shift. So, for example, there's a couple of things you have to debunk first, the things you believe in that are keeping you stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some really common social constructs that are doing this. One of them is what I call the happiness formula lie. That is this erroneous idea that once I get the right house, the right spouse, the right degree, the right job, the right income, the right dress size, or the right hair color, or the right whatever, and I line them all up, then I'll be happy. Whenever you're working from this kind of mental model that is an if-then structure, most likely you're wrong. You're off track, because that is fundamentally a lie. It has never worked for anyone. And what happens is one side of the equation just keeps shifting, and you never get to the other side of the equation where you get to be happy. Happiness is a state of being, and it comes from being in that state I talked about, which is the love consciousness. It's this interconnectivity with other things and people, a higher understanding of how life works. Now, another very bad, I would say, construct holding back a lot of people is what I call the sickness of more. And that is a fundamental idea that there's never enough. Like, I get something, okay, great, now I have it, I don't want it anymore, let me get to the next thing. And that keeps people on the treadmill. And keeping people on the treadmill means that they don't evolve, they don't respond to their natural calling, They don't develop their natural skills like they came with. We all have these like hidden superpowers. We don't respond to our evolutionary drive. We don't evolve. We're here to evolve as individuals and as groups, as companies, as countries, as a species. And if we're not doing that, we're getting squelched. And some of these social constructs are holding us there,
Mm-hmm.
which is sad. It's such a loss of potential.
Yeah.
So we have to break those, and then we have to consciously curate oneself as an individual, because leadership comes from the inside. It's who you're being while you're leading that makes you a good leader.
Yeah, it's true. So if a person has been listening, which I hope they have, and learned a little bit, which is a lot, and they can get a hold of your book, I'm wondering, how does a person reach out to you? What's the best way to contact you and they get a hold of your book? And maybe you could give some contact information because people would want to get in touch with you.
You can check out my coaching on White Lily coaching.com. And that's White Lily like the flower, White Lily Coaching. I also have a website which I'm trying to build right now, which is called Love Conscious Human, loveconscioushuman.com. So that's still in the works. So don't pay attention if it's a little messy. Then you can reach me on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn mostly, and that's Dr. Teri Baydar, Baydar. Dr. Teri Baydar, Teri with 4 letters, Teri. Where else? Instagram, Dr. Teri Baydar 1. I do Instagram. And that's about it. I do some other things, but those are the actual places I look.
Awesome. I want to thank you because it's very in depth, but it's also very succinct in the same way to give you some idea on how you can help people. So, Dr. Jerry, thank you so much for being a guest today. Love the people to get in touch with you and, maybe come back another time to speak a little bit more. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
You bet. Well, if you've enjoyed the program and if you enjoy what you're hearing, and hopefully you do, if you need help with the website, marketing your message, or anything having to do with business and technology, from everything from the mundane to the arcane, get in touch with me, the Doctor of Digital. And of course, make sure that you like, you subscribe, you share, and positively review on Apple Podcasts. Till the next time, we'll see you next time with another exciting episode. This is the Doctor of Digital signing off. Deus Volt.